The first time I met Logan's dad, I was carrying a box full of kitchen glasses up 3 flights of stairs and seriously considering dropping dead in the hallway. "Careful with that one," Logan yelled from somewhere behind me. "My mom will literally haunt us if those break." "She's not dead," I called back, shifting the box against my chest. "She acts like it whenever somebody touches her dishes." I laughed under my breath, already sweating through my t-shirt. Logan had warned me helping him move out of his old apartment would, but I hadn't realized he meant physically and emotionally. Half his stuff was still unpacked in random garbage bags. His lease ended in 2 days, and his roommate had apparently vanished to find himself in Arizona, which meant Logan had been doing most of this alone. And because I was apparently incapable of saying no to him, I'd volunteered to help. By noon, I regretted it. By 1, I was questioning our entire friendship. By 2, I met Spencer. I had just set the box down inside Logan's new apartment when I heard a voice behind me. "You must be the poor guy he tricked into helping." Low, calm, slightly amused. I turned around too fast and nearly walked straight into him. For a second, my brain genuinely stopped working. Spencer was taller than Logan by a couple inches, broader too, with dark hair streaked slightly at the temples like he'd started going gray early, but somehow made it look unfairly good. He wore a fitted black Henley with the sleeves pushed up to his forearms, jeans, work boots, and the kind of relaxed expression that instantly made you aware of yourself, especially when he looked directly at you. "Oh," I said brilliantly. His mouth twitched. "Dad," Logan groaned from the kitchen. "Don't flirt with my friends." I nearly choked on air. Spencer raised an eyebrow. "Relax." I said hello. "That's your hello voice?" Logan shot back. I stared between them, trying to recover enough dignity to function like a normal human being. I'm Aiden," I managed finally, holding out my hand. Spencer shook it once, firm and warm. "Spencer." His grip lingered maybe half a second too long. Or maybe I imagined that entirely. Probably imagined it. "You look exhausted," Spencer said. "Because your son owns approximately 9,000 books. They're important," Logan yelled defensively from the other room. Spencer glanced toward the kitchen. "He's had those same books since middle school. I think he just likes carrying them from apartment to apartment." I heard that. I laughed despite myself. And that should have been it. Just a normal introduction. Friend's dad. Moving day. Nothing significant. Except Spencer stayed. Most parents would have dropped off supplies or helped carry one thing before disappearing. Spencer just folded himself naturally into the chaos. He carried furniture without complaining, fixed one of the cabinet doors within 10 minutes of arriving, and somehow managed to keep Logan from having a complete stress meltdown every time something went wrong. At one point, Logan disappeared downstairs to grab another load from the truck, leaving me alone in the apartment with Spencer. I was kneeling near the couch, trying to untangle extension cords when he walked over holding 2 water bottles. "You're doing most of the work," he said, handing me one. "I'm beginning to realize your son's definition of a few boxes was dishonest." "That tracks." I smiled, unscrewing the cap. "You helping because you're a good dad, or because you don't trust him unsupervised?" "Yes." That made me laugh harder than it should have. Spencer leaned casually against the wall beside me, arms crossed. Up close, he smelled faintly like cedarwood and laundry detergent, clean and warm and distracting in a way I did not need right now. "So how do you know Logan?" he asked. "College," I said. "We had 2 classes together sophomore year. And you still volunteered for this?" "Honestly, I think I lost a bet at some point." He smiled properly then. And Jesus Christ, it wasn't dramatic or movie-like. It was worse. Easy. Natural. The kind of smile that sneaks up on you because it feels personal. "You're good for him," Spencer said. I blinked. "What?" "He doesn't let a lot of people close," he explained. "But he talks about you constantly." Something warm hit my chest unexpectedly. "Oh," I said quietly. Spencer studied me for a second like he was trying to figure something out. Then Logan burst back through the door carrying another box and ruined whatever moment that was. "Okay," Logan announced breathlessly. "Good news. We're almost done. Bad news. My mattress won't fit upstairs." Spencer immediately pushed off the wall. "Show me." I watched him walk toward the hallway, broad shoulders disappearing around the corner while Logan continued rambling about angles and staircases. And for some reason, I kept staring after him longer than necessary. That night, after we finally finished moving everything in, the 3 of us ended up sitting on Logan's apartment floor eating terrible pizza, because none of the chairs were assembled yet. Logan looked half dead. "I'm never moving again," he declared. "You said that last time," Spencer replied, "and I meant it emotionally." I sat cross-legged beside an unopened box labeled bathroom. In black marker. "You labeled your own stuff with question marks?" Logan pointed at me with his pizza slice. "Moving is a psychological event." Spencer laughed softly beside us. I tried very hard not to notice how comfortable he looked sitting there. Sleeves pushed up, one knee bent. Watching his son with that calm, patient expression that made it obvious Logan trusted him completely. It did something strange to me. Not attraction exactly. Not only attraction. Something warmer. Safer. Which was ridiculous because I'd known this man for maybe 6 hours. "You heading out tonight?" Logan asked his dad. Spencer nodded. "Early meeting tomorrow." "Corporate tragedy?" "Construction permit meeting." "Same thing." Spencer rolled his eyes affectionately, then looked at me. "You need a ride home?" The question caught me off guard. "Oh, no, I'm good. I drove." "You sure?" There was something unusually attentive in the way he asked it. Like he genuinely cared about the answer. "Yeah," I said. "Thanks, though." He nodded once. Then he stood, grabbing his keys from the counter. "I'm proud of you, by the way," he told Logan quietly. Logan immediately looked uncomfortable. "Don't do emotions in front of people." Spencer ignored him completely. "New apartment. New job. You're doing well." For the first time all day, Logan went quiet. "Thanks," he muttered. Something about that exchange hit me harder than expected. Maybe because my own father barely remembered my birthday half the time. Watching Spencer say something simple and sincere to his son, like it was the easiest thing in the world, made my chest ache in a way I didn't fully understand. Spencer glanced toward me again before heading for the door. "Nice meeting you, Aiden." "You too." And then he was gone. Logan waited exactly 3 seconds before speaking. "So," he said casually, grabbing another slice of pizza, "my dad definitely likes you." I nearly inhaled my drink. "What?" "He doesn't usually stay this long around my friends." "That means literally nothing." Logan gave me a look. I pointed at him immediately. "Don't make this weird." "I'm not making it weird." "You're already weird." "I am behaving completely normally." "You stared at him for like 6 straight hours." "I was not." "You absolutely were." I opened my mouth to deny it again, then stopped because unfortunately I had, in fact, stared at Spencer quite a lot. Logan grinned slowly. "Oh my God," he said. "You think my dad's hot." "I hate you." "That's not a denial." I buried my face in my hands while Logan laughed so hard he almost dropped his pizza. And the worst part? The absolute worst part? I couldn't even honestly tell him he was wrong. I told myself it was harmless. That was the first mistake. Because once the idea got into my head, Spencer looking at me differently, noticing me, maybe even liking me a little, suddenly, everything became dangerous. Every text from Logan mentioning his dad made my stomach do something stupid. Every accidental appearance in conversation stuck in my brain longer than it should have. And worst of all, I started looking forward to seeing him again, which happened way sooner than expected. About a week after the move, Logan invited me over to help finish setting up the apartment. Or, more accurately, to prevent him from emotionally collapsing while assembling IKEA furniture. I arrived around 6 carrying takeout and low expectations. "You're late," Logan announced dramatically when I walked in. "It's been 3 minutes." I could have died. "You'd haunt the apartment just to complain about the lighting." "Correct." I laughed, setting the food down on the counter. The apartment already looked more lived in now. Bookshelves assembled. Couch in place. String lights hanging crookedly across the living room because Logan refused to use a measuring tape like a functioning adult. I was halfway through unpacking containers when there was a knock at the door. Logan looked up immediately. "Oh, that's probably Dad." And there it was. That immediate stupid awareness in my chest. "You invited him to?" I asked, trying to sound normal. "He's bringing the toolbox because apparently I'm not qualified to use power tools unsupervised." "That feels fair." "Traitor." Before I could respond, Logan opened the door. And somehow Spencer looked even better than he had during moving day, which honestly felt rude at this point. Dark gray jacket. Slight stubble this time. Hair still messy from work like he'd been running his hands through it all day. He stepped inside carrying a metal toolbox in one hand. Then he saw me. Something in his expression shifted instantly. Small, but noticeable. "Aiden." The way he said my name should not have affected me that much. "Hey," I replied, hoping my voice sounded remotely steady. Spencer handed Logan the toolbox without looking away from me completely. I didn't know you'd be here. Logan snorted loudly from beside him. You say that like he's a surprise celebrity guest. Spencer finally looked at his son. You said a couple people were helping. There is literally one person here. I noticed. And okay, maybe I imagined the tone there. Maybe. But Logan noticed it too because his eyes immediately narrowed with interest. Oh, he said slowly. I shot him a warning look so aggressive it should have physically injured him. Thankfully, Spencer moved into the kitchen before Logan could start talking. Unfortunately, that meant I followed him like an idiot a few minutes later under the excuse of grabbing drinks. Spencer was leaning against the counter scrolling through his phone when I walked in. Need help? He asked immediately. No, I got it. He nodded, slipping his phone back into his pocket. For a second, neither of us spoke. The kitchen suddenly felt way too small. You surviving the furniture assembly? He asked. Barely. Your son has threatened divorce 3 times over a bookshelf. That's actually less than I expected. I laughed softly. Spencer watched me for a second with that same focused attention from before, like he listened with his whole body when you talked. It made me feel strangely nervous. You two seem close, he said. Me and Logan? Yeah. I shrugged lightly. He's important to me. Spencer nodded slowly like that answer mattered more than I realized. He needs people like that, he said quietly. Something about the way he said it made me look at him differently. Not just attractive. Tired, maybe. Like someone used to taking care of everyone else first. You okay? I asked before I could stop myself. His eyebrows lifted slightly. Why do you ask? You just seem, I hesitated. Worn out. For a moment, he looked genuinely surprised. Then he laughed softly under his breath. Guess I'm not hiding it well. You don't have to. The words slipped out naturally. Too naturally. Spencer looked at me then in a way that instantly changed the temperature in the room. Not inappropriate. Not exactly. Just very aware. Before either of us could say anything else, Logan shouted from the living room. Are you guys secretly falling in love in there, or can someone help me before I throw this shelf into traffic? I nearly dropped the drinks. Spencer closed his eyes briefly like he regretted becoming a parent. Coming, he called calmly. I stared at the floor while Spencer picked up one of the sodas beside me. You okay? He asked quietly, amusement creeping into his voice now. I'm considering walking into the ocean. That bad? Your son is evil. Spencer laughed again. And God, that sound did something to me. The rest of the evening should have diluted whatever weird tension existed between us. Instead, it got worse. Because Spencer was easy to be around. That was the problem. He and Logan bickered constantly in this comfortable, familiar rhythm that made the apartment feel warm instead of chaotic. Spencer teased him about buying unnecessary decorations. Logan mocked his taste in music. Neither of them seemed embarrassed by their closeness, and watching it made something ache pleasantly inside me. At one point, Logan disappeared downstairs to grab another bag from his car, leaving me alone with Spencer again while we tightened screws into the bookshelf. This thing's crooked, I muttered. You're holding it crooked. I absolutely am not. Spencer stepped closer beside me, reaching around to steady the frame. And suddenly he was right there. Close enough that I caught the clean scent of his cologne again. Close enough that my brain completely abandoned me. See, he said quietly. Better. I looked up automatically. Big mistake. Because Spencer was already looking at me. The moment stretched just slightly too long. Not enough to mean something obvious. Enough to feel it. Then Logan came back upstairs loudly complaining about parking, and the moment disappeared instantly. But afterward, Spencer became impossible to ignore. Every glance lingered too long. Every casual touch felt intentional even when it probably wasn't. And the worst part was that Spencer didn't seem uncomfortable. If anything, he seemed increasingly relaxed around me, which should have reassured me. Instead, it terrified me. Around 10, I finally stood to leave. Logan walked me toward the door while Spencer cleaned up tools near the kitchen island. You coming Friday? Logan asked. What's Friday? Dad's grilling at his place. I blinked. Why am I invited to that? Because I invited you? He means because I like you, Spencer said casually from across the apartment. Silence. Complete silence. I turned toward him slowly. Spencer didn't even look embarrassed. He just met my eyes calmly while wiping his hands on a towel. Logan looked delighted. Oh my God, he whispered dramatically. This is insane. You are making this weird again. I snapped immediately. I'm not the one getting invited to family barbecues by hot older men. Logan. Spencer sounded mildly warning now. What? Logan grinned. I'm just observing. I wanted the floor to open beneath me. Instead, Spencer walked over toward the door, stopping beside us. You should come Friday, he said, quieter this time. If you want. And again there was that look. That calm attentiveness that somehow felt more intimate than flirting. I swallowed hard. Yeah, I said. Okay. Spencer smiled softly. Good. Then Logan looked between both of us and immediately groaned. Nope, he announced. Absolutely not. You two are already giving me psychological damage. I spent an embarrassing amount of time thinking about Friday. Way too much time, actually. By Thursday night, Logan had already mocked me for changing outfits twice while we were on FaceTime. You know this is just burgers in a backyard, right? You're unbelievable. You like my dad. I do not. You absolutely do. I rubbed a hand down my face. Can we stop having this conversation forever? No, Logan said cheerfully. It's the only thing bringing me joy right now. I hated how smug he looked. Mostly because he wasn't wrong. The problem wasn't just that Spencer was attractive. Plenty of people were attractive. The problem was that Spencer paid attention to me. When I talked, he listened like the answer mattered. When he smiled at me, it felt specific somehow. Focused. And I couldn't stop thinking about it. Friday evening arrived way too fast. Spencer lived about 20 minutes outside the city in a quiet neighborhood filled with tall trees and houses that looked aggressively stable. The kind of place where people own matching patio furniture and definitely remembered trash day. I parked outside and sat in my car for a full minute questioning my life choices. Then my phone buzzed. Logan, if you sit outside for another minute, I'm telling Dad you're nervous. I stared at the message in horror. Me, how do you know I am outside? Logan, he noticed your car immediately. Creepy old man behavior, honestly. Before I could respond, the front door opened. And there was Spencer, standing on the porch in a dark green t-shirt and jeans, one hand tucked casually into his pocket while he looked directly toward my car. My stomach immediately betrayed me. He smiled the second I got out. You made it. God, why did those 3 words sound like that coming from him? Yeah, I said, trying not to sound breathless. Logan's inside harassing my neighbors already. That tracks. Spencer laughed softly and stepped aside so I could walk up onto the porch. You hungry? Always. Good answer. He held the door open for me, his hand brushing lightly against my back as I walked past. Tiny contact. Barely there. Still enough to completely scramble my thoughts. Inside, the house smelled like grilled food and cedar wood, and something warm I couldn't place at first until I realized it just smelled lived in. Comfortable. The living room was clean without feeling staged. Framed photos lined the shelves. Logan at different ages, Spencer beside him in most of them. Vacations, birthdays, school events, a whole life. You're late, Logan announced from the kitchen island while stealing chips from a bowl. It's been 30 seconds. We already considered replacing you. With who? Dad offered to adopt somebody more punctual. Spencer walked past us toward the kitchen. I said no such thing. You implied it emotionally. I absolutely did not. I laughed despite myself. And again, that warm feeling hit me unexpectedly. Watching them together felt easy. Familiar in a way I secretly envied. My own family had never sounded like this. Dinner itself turned out chaotic in the best way. Logan's neighbor came over at some point. Then another guy Spencer worked with. Somebody brought beer. Music played softly through speakers outside, while the sun slowly disappeared behind the trees. And through all of it, Spencer kept finding reasons to end up near me. Small things. Asking if I needed another drink before anyone else. Stopping beside my chair longer than necessary. Looking at me first whenever Logan said something ridiculous. I noticed every single one, which became a serious problem once beer got involved. Around 9, Logan disappeared inside with his neighbors to argue over some movie, leaving me alone outside near the grill while Spencer cleaned up plates beside the patio table. The night air felt cooler now, quieter. For a minute, neither of us spoke. Then Spencer glanced toward the house before looking back at me. You surviving? He asked. Barely. Your son's friends are terrifying. They are loud, he admitted. That too. He smiled softly. There it was again. That look. Calm. Focused. Intentional. You fit here pretty easily, he said after a second. The comment caught me off guard. What do you mean? With us. He leaned casually against the railing beside me. Logan doesn't bring many people around repeatedly. Something about the way he said us made my chest tighten strangely. I like being around him, I admitted. And he trusts you. I glanced toward the house where Logan's laugh echoed faintly through the screen door. That seems important to you. Spencer nodded immediately. It is. The honesty in his voice made me look at him differently again. Not just attractive, protective, steady. The kind of person people leaned on without even realizing it. You're really good with him, I said quietly. Spencer looked surprised for the second time since I'd met him. Most days I'm just trying not to screw him up. I don't think you did. He held my gaze then. Long enough that my heartbeat started acting stupid again. You notice a lot, he said softly. Before I could answer, the screen door burst open behind us. There you are, Logan announced dramatically, pointing at me. I need backup. Trevor's trying to say alien movies are political metaphors again. Maybe because they are, I muttered. You're dead to me. He grabbed my wrist immediately and started dragging me toward the door. I looked back once automatically. Spencer was still leaning against the railing watching us. Watching me. And the expression on his face made my stomach flip so hard it actually annoyed me. Later that night, after everyone left, I stayed behind helping clean up mostly because I didn't trust myself to leave yet. Logan eventually disappeared upstairs to take a phone call, leaving me alone in the kitchen with Spencer again. At this point, it almost felt intentional. You don't have to help, Spencer said while rinsing dishes. I know. Then why are you still here? The question sounded casual. The answer absolutely wasn't. Because I like being near you. Because every time you look at me, I forget how to function. Because something weird is happening between us, and I don't know if I'm imagining it anymore. Instead, I shrugged lightly. You cooked. Feels fair. Spencer dried his hands slowly with a towel. Then he looked at me in that same direct way that kept undoing me piece by piece. You're easy to have around, he said quietly. My chest tightened immediately. Careful, I joked weakly. That almost sounded like a compliment. It was one. Silence settled between us. Not awkward. Worse. Aware. I became suddenly hyper-conscious of how empty the house was now. How close he stood across the kitchen island. How low his voice had gotten. Then Spencer spoke again. You know Logan's convinced you have a crush on me. I nearly dropped the plate in my hands. Oh my God, he's not subtle. I'm going to actually kill him. Spencer laughed softly, but he never looked away from me. And? He asked after a second. The word landed heavily. My pulse immediately spiked. And what? His eyes stayed on mine. Is he wrong? Everything in the room seemed to go still at once. The refrigerator humming. The distant sound of Logan upstairs. My own heartbeat. Spencer wasn't smiling anymore. He looked calm, patient, like he genuinely wanted the answer. And suddenly I realized something terrifying. I didn't know how to lie to him. I should have laughed it off. That was the normal response. Make a joke. Change the subject. Pretend the tension swallowing the entire kitchen wasn't real. Instead, I just stood there staring at Spencer like my brain had disconnected from the rest of my body. And somehow he waited. Calm. Patient. Like he already knew this mattered. Upstairs, I could still faintly hear Logan talking on the phone, pacing heavily across the floorboards. Too close. Way too close for this conversation. I stopped immediately because my voice sounded wrecked. Spencer's expression softened slightly. You don't have to answer, he said quietly, which somehow made me want to answer more. That feels unfair, I admitted finally. His eyebrows lifted slightly. Unfair. You asking me that when you look at me like this. The words escaped before I could stop them. Silence hit instantly. Spencer didn't move. Didn't pretend not to understand. His eyes stayed locked on mine in a way that made my chest tighten painfully. How am I looking at you? He asked softly. Jesus Christ. I laughed once under my breath, nervous energy crackling through me now. You seriously want me to say it out loud? Maybe. There was something dangerously warm underneath that answer. I looked away first, because if I didn't, I was genuinely afraid I might say something reckless. The kitchen suddenly felt too intimate. Low lights, half-finished dishes, the quiet house wrapped around us. Spencer stepped around the island slowly. Not close enough to touch me. Close enough that I noticed anyway. Aiden. The way he said my name made my stomach twist. You should not say my name like that. A small smile pulled at the corner of his mouth. Like what? Like you know it affects me. That finally made something shift visibly in his expression. Not smugness. Recognition. Like hearing me admit it out loud answered a question he'd been asking himself too. For a second, neither of us spoke. Then Spencer exhaled quietly and rubbed a hand across the back of his neck. This is complicated, he admitted. Yeah, I said immediately. Obviously, you're Logan's friend. I know. And I'm. He stopped himself, almost amused. Too old for you. I looked at him automatically. You're really not. His eyebrows rose slightly at how fast I answered. Great. Fantastic. Very subtle behavior from me. I mean, I added quickly, trying to recover, you're not old. That's somehow worse. I buried my face in my hands briefly while Spencer laughed under his breath. And there it was again, that stupid warmth between us making everything feel easier than it should. Dangerously easy. When I lowered my hands, Spencer was still watching me. Softer now. You know what the worst part is? He asked quietly. What? I liked you immediately. The air left my lungs. Actually left. I stared at him in complete silence while my heartbeat tried to physically kill me. Spencer looked almost frustrated with himself now, like admitting it out loud made the whole thing more real than intended. Dad, Logan's voice suddenly echoed faintly upstairs. Have you seen my charger? Both of us jumped apart instinctively. The moment shattered immediately. Spencer stepped back first, running a hand down his jaw like he was resetting himself mentally. In the living room, he called upward, voice perfectly steady somehow. Love you. Love you too. Then silence again. I looked at Spencer. He looked exhausted suddenly. Not emotionally distant. Just aware. Aware of what this was becoming. We should probably stop this conversation here, he said quietly. The disappointment that hit me felt embarrassingly immediate. Right, I muttered. Spencer studied my face for a second. I'm not rejecting you. That made me look back up instantly. I didn't say you were. You thought it. Maybe I had. Spencer leaned lightly against the counter behind him, arms crossing slowly. I'm trying to be responsible, he admitted, which unfortunately used to be one of my better qualities. Despite everything, I smiled. There it is, he murmured. What? That look. His voice lowered slightly again. You smile at me like you already know something I'm trying very hard not to say. My stomach flipped violently. You are not helping. I'm aware. And God, the honesty between us was becoming unbearable. No games. No pretending this thing didn't exist. Just two people standing in a quiet kitchen trying not to cross a line neither of them could stop thinking about. Then Logan finally came downstairs. And the second he looked between us, his eyes narrowed instantly. Oh no, he said. Both of us looked at him too quickly. Logan pointed dramatically between us. What happened? Nothing. Spencer and I answered at the exact same time. That made Logan gasp loudly. That is the most suspicious thing either of you could have said. Go to bed. Spencer replied immediately. No, absolutely not. You two look weird. We always look weird, I muttered. Not like this. Logan squinted harder. You both have the same face people have after emotional damage. Spencer pinched the bridge of his nose. Logan. What? I'm serious. I grabbed my jacket immediately before this got worse. Okay, I announced too quickly. I should go. Logan looked deeply offended. You're leaving because I'm observant? Yes. Coward. I pointed at him accusingly. This is your fault somehow. My fault your unresolved tension is visible from space. Spencer actually laughed at that, which made Logan freeze dramatically mid-step. Oh my God, he whispered. Dad likes him back. I wanted to evaporate instantly. Good night, I said firmly, already heading toward the door. Logan followed me while laughing so hard he could barely breathe. You're both disasters, he informed me happily. Your family is horrible. You're obsessed with us. Unfortunately, that part might have been true. At the door, Spencer walked over more slowly, hands tucked into his pockets now. The teasing energy from earlier had faded again. Now he just looked at me carefully. You okay to drive? The concern in his voice hit me harder than anything else tonight. Yeah, I said softly. He nodded once. Then, quieter. Text Logan when you get home. Not me. Logan. Like he was deliberately creating distance again. And somehow that hurt more than I expected. I must have looked disappointed for a second because Spencer's expression shifted immediately. Aiden, he said softly. Just my name. Still enough to undo me. I'll see you around, okay? There was something loaded underneath the words. Not goodbye. Not exactly. Just restraint. I swallowed hard and nodded once. Yeah, I said quietly. Okay. For the next 4 days, Spencer avoided being alone with me. Not obviously. That was the problem. Nothing dramatic changed. He still reacted to my messages in the group chat with Logan. Still liked the stupid photo Logan posted of me falling asleep on the couch during movie night. Still acted warm and normal whenever we were all together. But every single time we might have ended up alone, something interrupted it. Spencer suddenly had work calls. or errands, or disappeared into another room right before conversations became too quiet. At first, I told myself I was imagining it. By day 3, I knew I wasn't. And unfortunately, Logan knew too. You two had some kind of emotional event, he announced while sitting cross-legged on my couch eating cereal directly from the box. I looked up from my laptop. Can you stop speaking like an alien trying to understand humans? No, he pointed his spoon at me. Dad's being weird. Your dad is always weird. Not this kind. I tried focusing back on my screen. Maybe he's busy. Logan narrowed his eyes immediately. You're lying terribly. I'm literally not lying. You sound divorced. That made me laugh despite myself, then immediately feel worse. Because the truth was, I missed him, which was insane. Nothing had even happened. No kiss. No actual crossing of lines. Just tension and lingering looks, and one conversation that replayed in my head constantly, no matter how hard I tried to stop thinking about it. I like you immediately. The memory alone made my chest tighten. Logan watched me carefully over the rim of his cereal bowl. Oh no, he said slowly. You're emotionally invested. I hate you. You're in love with my father. I am absolutely not. That wasn't convincing at all. I threw a pillow at his face. Unfortunately, he caught it immediately. Coward behavior, he informed me. You came into my apartment to psychologically attack me. Yes, he replied calmly. Because I'm a good friend. The worst part? Part of me wanted to ask him directly if Spencer had said anything. Anything at all. But I couldn't. Because if Spencer was deliberately pulling away, I didn't want confirmation. That night, around 11, my phone buzzed unexpectedly. Spencer. Logan left his jacket in my truck again. Any chance you're near campus tomorrow? I stared at the message way too long. Just reading his name made my heartbeat speed up again. Me. Yeah, probably. The typing bubble appeared immediately. Spencer. Mind grabbing coffee for 10 minutes so I can hand it off? Coffee. 10 minutes. My stomach flipped instantly. Me, sure. 3 dots again. Spencer. Appreciate it. That was all. And somehow it still kept me awake half the night. The next afternoon, I arrived at the coffee shop 20 minutes early like a complete idiot. I blamed anxiety. Mostly because admitting excitement would have been humiliating. The place was half empty, quiet except for low music and the sound of espresso machines. I picked a table near the window and tried unsuccessfully not to check the door every 30 seconds. Then Spencer walked in and immediately found me. The awareness between us hit so fast, it almost startled me. He wore a navy jacket over a black t-shirt this time. Hair still slightly damp like he'd showered quickly after work. He looked tired again around the eyes. But the second he saw me, something softened. Hey. God. I really needed him to stop saying things like that. Hey, I replied. Spencer walked over carrying Logan's jacket over one arm. But instead of immediately handing it to me and leaving, he sat down across from me first, which somehow made me more nervous. You got here early, he said. I was already nearby. Complete lie. His mouth twitched slightly like he knew it too. A waitress appeared beside us before I could embarrass myself further. You want anything? Spencer asked. You don't have to buy me coffee. I know. He held my gaze for a second. I want to. That tiny sentence affected me way too much. A few minutes later, after ordering, silence settled briefly between us. Not awkward. Careful. Spencer looked out the window once before finally speaking. I'm sorry if I made things weird. My chest tightened immediately. You didn't. I did. He sighed softly. I've been avoiding you. Straight to the point. I appreciated that about him. Yeah, I admitted quietly. You kind of have. Spencer rubbed his thumb slowly against the side of his coffee cup. I was trying to do the right thing. There's that word again. His eyes lifted back to mine immediately. Responsible? Yeah. I leaned back slightly. You say it like this is some horrible moral crisis. His expression shifted subtly. You don't think it is? I opened my mouth, then stopped. Because honestly, I didn't know. Not fully. You're Logan's dad, I said carefully. And that matters. It does. But, he asked quietly. I looked at him across the table, steady eyes, tired expression, hands wrapped loosely around his coffee cup like he was grounding himself physically. And suddenly the truth felt very simple. But I still like you. Spencer went very still. No dramatic reaction. Somehow worse. He just looked at me silently for a long second like hearing me say it out loud changed something fundamental. Then he exhaled quietly through his nose. Christ. What? You make this difficult. Despite everything, I smiled slightly. Pretty sure you're the adult here. That's exactly the problem. There it was again. Not rejection, just conflict. Spencer looked down briefly before speaking again. You know what keeps bothering me? What? That every time I tell myself to create distance from you. His eyes lifted back to mine slowly. I immediately start wondering how your day's going. The warmth that hit my chest felt almost painful. I looked down at my coffee because suddenly holding eye contact felt impossible. That's not helping either, I muttered. Spencer laughed softly under his breath. And there it was again, that ease between us underneath all the tension. Like we already fit together somewhere we shouldn't. The waitress dropped off our drinks then, interrupting whatever dangerous direction the conversation was heading. Spencer thanked her automatically. Then, quieter once she walked away. I don't want to mess up my relationship with Logan. The honesty in his voice hit immediately. I know. He's my favorite person in the world. Something about hearing Spencer say that so openly made my chest ache. Not jealousy. Almost admiration. You're a really good dad, I said softly. Spencer looked genuinely caught off guard. Aiden, I mean it. I shrugged lightly. You care about him in this really obvious way. For a second, he didn't speak. Then his expression softened into something almost unbearably warm. You notice too much. You said that already. Because it keeps being true. Silence settled again, this time gentler. And suddenly I realized something dangerous. Neither of us actually wanted this conversation to end. We stayed at that coffee shop for almost 2 hours, which absolutely wasn't supposed to happen. At some point, Logan's jacket ended up forgotten beside Spencer's chair while we kept talking like neither of us noticed time passing. Work, college, music, random stories about Logan as a kid that Spencer swore were classified information. He cried for 3 hours because I cut his sandwich into squares instead of triangles once. That honestly explains a lot about him. It explained a lot about me too. I laughed hard enough at that to earn a lingering smile from Spencer that completely derailed my train of thought again. The problem wasn't just attraction anymore. It was comfort. Being around him felt easy in this dangerous, natural way I couldn't stop sinking into. Like we'd somehow skipped past awkwardness entirely and landed somewhere quieter, more intimate. At one point I caught Spencer watching me while I talked about a professor I hated. Not casually. Focused. Warm. I stopped mid-sentence immediately. What? His expression shifted slightly like he'd gotten caught. Nothing. That's absolutely a lie. A small smile pulled at the corner of his mouth. You're expressive, he admitted. So are you. Not usually. That's not true. His eyebrows lifted. I leaned back slightly, studying him now. You react to everything. You just do it quietly. Spencer stared at me for a second, then laughed softly under his breath, like I'd surprised him again. There's that noticing thing. I can stop. I didn't say I wanted you to. The words settled heavily between us, and suddenly neither of us looked away. The cafe noise blurred softly around us, cups clinking somewhere behind the counter, low conversations from other tables, but all I could really focus on was Spencer's eyes staying locked on mine a second too long again. Then his phone buzzed. The moment broke instantly. Spencer glanced down at the screen and sighed. Logan. He locked himself out of his apartment. I snorted immediately. Of course he did. He says this is somehow my fault genetically. That also tracks. Spencer smiled, but some of the softness faded from his expression now. Reality settling back in. He slipped his phone into his pocket again slowly. I should go rescue him. Yeah. Neither of us moved immediately. God, this was getting bad. Spencer looked down briefly at his coffee cup before speaking again. I've been trying to figure out what the smart decision is here. I already knew I wasn't going to like where this conversation went. And his eyes lifted back to mine. You're still sitting here. The honesty in that answer hit me hard. Before I could respond, Spencer stood slowly, grabbing Logan's jacket from the chair beside him. I'll drive you back to campus. You don't have to. I know. There it was again. I want to. Something warm twisted painfully in my chest. The drive back should have felt awkward after that conversation. Instead, it somehow felt even more intimate. Maybe because the car was quiet. Maybe because Spencer looked comfortable with silence in a way most people didn't. One hand rested loosely on the steering wheel, while soft music played low through the speakers. Outside, rain had started falling lightly against the windshield, turning the city blurry under streetlights. I became hyper-aware of everything. The sound of his breathing. The way he tapped his thumb absently against the wheel during red lights. How calm he looked beside me. You're thinking loudly again, Spencer said suddenly. I looked over immediately. What does that even mean? It means I can tell when your brain's moving too fast. That's horrifying. He laughed softly. Then, after a second, what are you thinking about? You. Constantly. Instead, I stared out the windshield. This feels dangerous. Silence. Not offended. Just listening. Dangerous how? He asked quietly. I swallowed hard. Like I'm getting attached to something that doesn't have a good ending. The words came out more honest than intended. Spencer's grip tightened slightly on the steering wheel. For a second, he didn't answer. Then, you think I'd hurt you? The question hit immediately. I turned toward him fast. No. God, no. And I meant that completely. If anything, Spencer seemed almost too careful with me. I just think, I search for the right words. Eventually, one of us is going to have to be realistic. Spencer went quiet again after that. The rain filled the silence softly. Finally, he spoke. You know what's frustrating? What? I haven't wanted to be realistic since the day I met you. My chest tightened so hard it actually hurt. I looked down immediately because there was no way my face wasn't giving everything away now. Spencer pulled into a parking spot outside my apartment building a minute later. Neither of us moved to get out. Of course not. That would have been too easy. Rain streaked softly across the windows while the engine hummed quietly beneath us. You should go upstairs before Logan starts sending search parties, Spencer murmured. Probably. Still neither of us moved. Then Spencer looked at me fully. And something changed. Not dramatic. Worse. Decision settling into his expression slowly. Aiden, he said quietly. The way he said my name now felt different from before. Less restrained. I looked back at him automatically. Spencer exhaled softly through his nose like he was arguing with himself internally. Then he reached over carefully. Slow enough for me to stop him. His fingers brushed lightly against my wrist. Tiny contact. Still enough to send heat straight through my chest. You make me forget I'm supposed to know better, he admitted quietly. Everything inside me went still. The rain. The music. My heartbeat. Spencer's hand stayed lightly against my wrist while he watched my face like he was trying to memorize the reaction. I couldn't breathe properly. And the terrifying part? I didn't want him to pull away. I don't know who moved first. That's the part one kept replaying afterward, trying to figure out. Maybe it was me leaning slightly toward him. Maybe it was Spencer's hand sliding more firmly around my wrist. Maybe neither of us consciously decided anything at all. All I know is that suddenly the distance between us felt unbearable. Then Spencer pulled back first. Not sharply. Carefully. Like it physically cost him something. He dropped his hand slowly from my wrist and leaned back against the driver's seat with a quiet exhale. Christ, he muttered under his breath. The loss of contact hit immediately. Neither of us spoke for a second. Rain tapped softly against the windows while tension filled every inch of the car. Spencer stared forward through the windshield now, jaw tight. I can't do this halfway, he said finally. I swallowed hard. What does that mean? His eyes closed briefly before he answered. It means if something happens between us, he paused. It becomes real very quickly. The seriousness in his voice made my chest tighten. You say that like it's a bad thing. Spencer looked at me immediately. That's exactly the problem. There it was again. Not rejection. Fear. Not fear of me. Fear of what this would change. I haven't felt like this in a long time, he admitted quietly. My heartbeat stuttered painfully. Spencer laughed softly under his breath then, but there was no humor in it. You have no idea how inconvenient that is. Despite everything, I smiled faintly. Inconvenient. You're 23. My son adores you. And every time I tell myself to create space, I end up finding excuses to see you again. The honesty between us was becoming almost overwhelming now. No games. No pretending. Just truth after truth landing softly between us. I looked down at my hands for a second before asking quietly, Are you scared of Logan finding out? Spencer went still. Then he answered honestly, Yes. The word hit harder than I expected. Not because I blamed him. Because I understood him. He's my kid, Spencer said softly. And he trusts me. You think this would break that? I don't know. That answer hurt too. Because I didn't know either. Outside, rain continued falling steadily around the car while silence settled between us again. Then Spencer looked at me carefully. But that's not the only reason I'm scared. I frowned slightly. Then what is? His expression softened into something unexpectedly vulnerable. You matter already. The air left my lungs quietly. Spencer held my gaze while he said it, calm and honest and completely serious. And if this goes badly, he continued softly, I think it would hurt more than either of us expects. For a second, I genuinely couldn't speak. Because the terrifying part? I felt it too. This wasn't flirting anymore. It wasn't harmless tension. Somewhere along the way, Spencer had started becoming important to me in a way that felt real. Dangerously real. I don't want to stop talking to you, I admitted quietly. Something shifted in his expression immediately. Warmth. Relief. Spencer looked down briefly, like hearing that mattered more than he wanted it to. Then his phone buzzed loudly through the quiet car. Both of us startled slightly. Spencer glanced at the screen and sighed instantly. Let me guess, I murmured. Logan says he's freezing to death outside his apartment. I laughed despite myself. Spencer smiled too, softer now. Then he looked back at me again. And suddenly the atmosphere changed completely. Less tension, more inevitability. Like we'd finally stopped pretending this thing between us wasn't mutual. You should go upstairs, he said quietly. Yeah. Neither of us moved again. This was becoming a serious issue. Spencer laughed softly under his breath, like he noticed too. You're making this difficult. I'm pretty sure we established you're the problem. Oh, I'm definitely a problem. The low warmth in his voice made my stomach flip again. Then Spencer looked at me for one long second before speaking carefully. I need to ask you something. What? If Logan reacts badly, he hesitated. Would you regret this? The question landed heavily. Not because I didn't know the answer. Because I did. I looked directly at him. No. Spencer's eyes searched my face quietly, like he was checking for hesitation. There wasn't any. Finally, he nodded once. Slowly. Then, softer. Okay. Just one word. Still enough to feel like something changed permanently. I reached for the door handle carefully before I lost my nerve completely. But before I opened it, Spencer spoke again. Aiden. I looked back immediately. His expression had gone gentler now. Less guarded than I'd ever seen it. Get upstairs before I do something irresponsible. Heat rushed straight into my chest. I stared at him for half a second too long. Then finally laughed quietly under my breath. You say irresponsible like it's not tempting. Spencer looked at me in a way that instantly stole the air from my lungs again. Trust me, he said softly. I know. And God. If I stayed another minute in that car, I was almost certain one of us was going to cross a line we couldn't uncross. I barely slept that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Spencer sitting in that car looking at me like he was trying not to want something. And the worst part? I knew exactly what he meant when he said he couldn't do this halfway. Because neither could I. By morning, my phone already had 3 unread messages from Logan. Logan, Dad dropped me off at 1 a.m. looking emotionally unstable. Logan, what did you do to him? Logan, answer coward. I groaned into my pillow immediately. Me, literally nothing happened. The typing bubble appeared almost instantly. Logan, that's somehow more suspicious. Before I could answer, another message appeared. Logan, wait. Logan, oh my God, something almost happened. I threw my phone across the bed dramatically. Unfortunately, Logan knew me too well. The rest of the day felt unbearable after that. Every notification made my pulse spike. Every time my phone stayed silent too long, disappointment crept in immediately. And Spencer didn't text, which logically made sense. Emotionally, it drove me insane. By evening, I'd almost convinced myself maybe the whole thing had overwhelmed him enough that he was pulling back again. Then around 7, my phone buzzed. Spencer, you busy? That was it. 2 words. Still enough to completely derail me. Me, depends. 3 dots appeared. Spencer, smart answer. I smiled before I could stop myself. Me, what's up? This time the typing took longer. Spencer, Logan's at a concert tonight. My stomach flipped instantly. Then another message appeared before I could respond. Spencer, I was thinking maybe we should actually talk without him accidentally appearing every 5 minutes. Okay. Wow. I stared at the screen for a full 10 seconds. Me, dangerous suggestion. Spencer, probably. Another pause. Then, Spencer, still want to come over? My heartbeat immediately became a problem. Me, yeah. The response came fast this time. Spencer, okay. Spencer, 8? Me, see you then. The second the conversation ended, panic set in. Not bad panic. Worse, anticipation. By the time I drove to Spencer's house, my nerves were so bad I almost turned around twice. Because this felt different now. Intentional. Not accidental run-ins, or group dinners, or lingering conversations disguised as something else. Just him inviting me over because he wanted to see me. Only me. The realization sat heavily in my chest the entire drive. When I pulled into his driveway, the porch light was already on. And somehow that affected me too. I walked up the steps, trying unsuccessfully to calm my heartbeat before knocking once. A second later, the door opened. Spencer looked like he'd changed 3 times before settling on this version of casual. Dark sweater, jeans, hair still slightly damp again like he'd showered recently. His eyes found mine immediately and softened. Hey, there it was again, that impossible warmth in his voice. Hey, I replied quietly. For a second, neither of us moved. Then Spencer stepped aside slowly. Come in. The house felt quieter without Logan there. More intimate somehow. No background noise. No teasing interruptions. Just soft music playing somewhere deeper inside the house and the warm glow of kitchen lights. Spencer closed the door behind me carefully, then immediately looked slightly uncomfortable with how aware we suddenly both were. This already feels dangerous, I admitted. That made him laugh softly under his breath. Yeah, he murmured. A little. I followed him toward the kitchen where 2 glasses already sat beside an open bottle of wine. You planned this, I said immediately. Spencer glanced over his shoulder. I considered the possibility you'd say yes. That's basically planning. You caught me. God, this was bad. Because he looked relaxed tonight. Not guarded the way he had been in the car. Still careful, but softer somehow. Spencer poured wine into both glasses before handing me one. Our fingers brushed briefly. Tiny contact. Still enough to send heat through my chest again. You nervous? He asked quietly. I looked at him over the rim of my glass. Are you? A small smile pulled at his mouth. Very. The honesty made me exhale softly through a laugh. Okay, good. That reassuring? A little. Spencer leaned lightly against the counter across from me. And for the first time since meeting him, we were completely alone without some external reason forcing distance between us. No Logan upstairs. No coffee shop noise. No rain distracting us. Just this. Just him watching me carefully over the kitchen island while tension curled steadily warmer between us. Finally, Spencer spoke. I keep trying to figure out how this happened. You liking me? His eyebrows lifted slightly. You say that very confidently. I'm adapting. That made him laugh again. Then his expression softened. I did try not to. The confession landed quietly between us. I know. I really did, he admitted. At first I thought maybe it was temporary. Attraction. Curiosity. He shook his head once lightly. Then suddenly I was looking forward to hearing your voice. My chest tightened painfully. Spencer looked down briefly at his glass before continuing. And that scared me more. The vulnerability in his voice made me step closer before I even fully realized I was doing it. Not touching him, just less distance. Spencer noticed immediately. His eyes lifted back to mine slowly. You know what's unfair? I asked quietly. What? You say things like that and still expect me to behave normally around you. Something warm flashed across his face instantly. Then he exhaled softly and set his wine glass down beside him. Aiden. The way he said my name now felt almost unbearably intimate. I swallowed hard. Neither of us moved. But suddenly the space between us felt charged in a completely different way now. Not uncertainty anymore. Choice.